Hello everyone, my name is Quinn the GM. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute since I've done any sort of review content on here, but I'm excited to get back to it. Today I'm bringing you my thoughts on a preview of a current Kickstarter, which is Injuries and Vile Deeds. It's for a new set of rules in D&D 5e in order to create systems of injuries, as the name would imply, as well as things for NPCs and other tools that the DM can use in order to just make their game more interesting overall. I have teamed up with Lone Colossus Games to bring you this. They provided me this review thing, which I believe I need to disclose, but they have not dictated my opinion in any way. My thoughts here are my own. But overall, I think this is a really cool system, and I'm excited to get into it. I'm going to give my thoughts on portions of it overall and go through portions of it with you that I've been clear to share, as well as go over the Kickstarter itself, which I have an affiliate link in the description below this video. So if you want to check that out, the link is there. Be sure to check it out there. And also, if you enjoy this, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm excited to get into my thoughts on this, and I hope to provide reviews of other stuff coming up in the future here. So yeah, let's dive into Injuries and Vile Deeds by Lone Colossus Games. Over the Kickstarter page itself and give you an idea of essentially what this is overall. It's already been funded, as you can see. It's over double its goal, but there are a number of really cool stretch goals that I'd love to see them make. So going on down here to the description itself. Keep combat exciting. If you're a fan of the combat aesthetics in shows like Castlevania or The Witcher, or love the kill animations of God of War, Sekiro, or Shadows of Mordor, then Injuries and Vile Deeds will be a perfect addition to your game. This supplement for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is filled to the brim with nearly 200 new feats, items, spells, subclasses, villainous NPCs, and terrifying monsters. Each new character option and enemy ties into the injury systems, making it easy for you to apply cinematic descriptions to thoroughly tactical combat. Gone are the days of nondescript attack and damage rolls. Injuries and Vile Deeds restores excitement to combat and providing rules for cinematic tactical encounters. If I could speak, I would say cinematic, but I digress. PC injuries create narrative tension, keeping the party on its toes as they weigh the risks of pressing on or allowing their enemies to get a step ahead. Meanwhile, players can add mechanical effects to descriptive combat, inflicting injuries on their enemies and causing negative side effects with every action. All of the art for this book also looks fantastic, particularly this cover art I just absolutely love. But yeah, no, we'll get into some of my more specific thoughts on the book itself now. So the preview that I was given is primarily focused on the system of injuries itself, upon which all these feats, subclasses, monsters will be reliant. I really like these rules, and I think they really add a lot to your game, especially from the DM's end, which I'm going to get into. First, I'm going to read a blurb from the preview on why you should use these rules. I think it can describe it far better than I can. Combat at higher levels can often be long and drawn out, with the players never feeling a true sense of danger, and tactics often break down into how much damage each side can deal relative to their foe's hit points. At lower levels, damage output is sufficient to provide the threat of danger and death, but by levels 5 through 10, most parties already have a number of ways to cheat death, and to turn the damage from a single encounter into a near meaningless number of expended spell slots and hit dice. These rules seek to provide a new threat to combat: injuries. Random injury tables exist online, but their severity and outcome often are completely random, ranging from crippling to non-existent, from totally reasonable to completely outlandish. These rules also allow players to take initiative in creating weaknesses in their enemies, in which the party can exploit for more creative combat encounters. They also create more scenarios which force one side to flee before death arrives, allowing for more dramatic storytelling and more convincing recurring villains. This touches on what I think is one of the strongest aspects of these rules, the fact that there is a scaling element to the injuries. You have injuries that are ranging from minor inconveniences to things that mean certain death is on the way for the character. And there is a way to kind of tell what an injury should be for each character's hit point values, which I really like. I will say that all values here are subject to change through balance testing, but I really like the balance that they've currently found. I think seems like it would work quite well, though I haven't gotten a chance to try it out in my own games, though I plan to at some point soon. Furthermore, I really like the aspect that this applies to both the players and to their enemies. I like it when systems in a game feel fair, especially as a DM, as that's something that's very important to me. And it's really great to be able to have that ability to both cause more injuries to your players, but they can also do it to your enemies. So it really creates an interesting relationship in combat that did not exist there previously. They also bring up the great point that while this could end up helping the players in the short term, essentially being able to injure enemies to provide debilitating effects, it is also worse for them in the long term, because enemies might show up once or twice, or maybe they're recurring, but their injuries can heal, whereas the players may accrue permanent injuries if they become severe enough, and just generally gain more just debuffs over time if they are continuing to not treat injuries and not act appropriately. Overall, I think these rules add a lot of verisimilitude to your world. Having these in place allows a DM to plan encounters accordingly. I know as a DM, I often struggle at early levels when I find that it's difficult to kill players because I don't necessarily want to end their story so prematurely and just destroy any effort they put into this character that they've really grown attached to. However, having systems for injuries in place allows you to, rather than just kill an enemy or blatantly pull a punch to some degree, you're able to find a middle ground there, leave some lasting consequence with the character, but not have this character removed from play entirely. I really love that this system of injuries adds that to the game, and that's the main reason I want to use it primarily.
I can actually show you, I've got the special injuries and actions, which I absolutely love. It adds more flavor to combat and allows you to have further interactions with a damaging spell than just, oh, you take 20 points of fire damage. My thought was always, if a meteor is dropped on somebody and they take 100 points of fire damage, they should have more injury than just walking away with 100 hit points gone. So overall, there are a number of actions you can take, particularly Silencing Strike, which is a great way to debilitate spellcasters. Instead of declaring an aspect for target to an injury, you may declare your action for a Silencing Strike. If you meet the threshold to inflict an injury or handicap or higher, it gains the silenced injury. See below. Silence. While silenced, the creature cannot speak at loud volumes, which interferes with their ability to call for help or otherwise verbally aid their allies. This does not interfere with spellcasting. This injury counts as a setback for recovery purposes. I really like that. The fact that it also allows the maimed threshold to cause a drawback to spellcasting. The degrees of success again come in here, and I really enjoy that. And I think it's great to have that role play ability to silence an enemy if need be, if you want to not alert other people. If you're like trying to sneak up on a goblin camp and you don't want to scout's death to alert the authorities back there. There are also injuries by damage type, which I really love. When attempting to inflict an injury, a player may choose to inflict an injury based on one of the special damage types they would deal. These injuries may be gained more than once, but the penalties to injury thresholds do not stack. So moving on from that, you have different ones for different types of damage that are kind of less commonly seen. Acid, corroded. Creature's injury thresholds for its defense aspect are reduced by 5. This injury counts as one of dangerous severity for the purposes of recovery. Cold, hypothermia. The creature's movement speed is reduced by 5 feet, and its injury thresholds for mobility are reduced by 5. This really makes sense. Both acid would be able to corrode the defenses of a creature, and cold might make them more difficult to move. Fire has heat shock. I know I felt that at band camp in high school, but maybe not in D&D yet, but I'm excited to see it here. The creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll and disadvantage on ability checks until the end of its next turn. This injury counts as one of dangerous severity for the purposes of recovery. That's quite cool and adds more flavor to the numerous fire damage spells that already exist in 5e. Lightning has electrified. A creature has disadvantage on saving throws against being stunned or paralyzed for 1 minute until it fails a saving throw against one of those conditions. I really like that. That kind of I'm a big Pokemon fan, as some of the recent videos may have shown you, but that really lends to that idea of lightning being able to paralyze or stun a creature. Thunder can disorient. Creature has a disadvantage on perception checks until the end of its next turn, and its senses injury thresholds are reduced by 5. I really like that as well. It seems very fitting that if they're in the middle of a thunder wave, that they would not be able to see quite as well or hear quite as well after that. Force unsteady, disadvantage on ability checks to maintain balance or to grapple. That really makes sense, and I'm sure a lot of warlocks would love that with Eldritch Blast. Psychic pain, that makes sense. If your brain hurts, the rest of you is going to hurt. The creature grants advantage on the next attack roll made against them. This injury counts as a setback for the next severity for the purposes of recovery. I really like that, and it can allow the flavor of them like stumbling around in pain after a psychic blast. Radiant as irradiated is a flavor that I absolutely love, and I might end up using in future supplements of my own. The idea of radiation and radiant damage being so similar is not one that had occurred to me over my years of DMing for some reason, and I really like that now. Creature becomes poisoned for 1 round, even if they're normally immune. This is great. The poison condition is something that is normally easily overcome by high tiers of play, and the ability to inflict it, even for a round, if a creature is normally immune, is huge. Necrotic gives Drained, which reduces the creature's max. Oh, I scrolled up too far. Reduced by an amount equal to half the damage dealt until it finishes a short or long rest. This is really cool and can allow for circumvention of any healing that enemies may have, which could be quite useful in fighting things like vampires. Overall, I love these ideas for just changes to damage if you take a certain amount of a certain type. And I, again, think these should just be absolutely included in every version of 5th edition generally.
There are also, in order to kind of aid you in both applying injuries to your players and aid your players in applying injuries to their enemies, thresholds for different types of injuries. So specifically, thresholds are determined by the maximum HP of whatever creature is existing there. And the injury thresholds are setback, dangerous, handicap, deadly, lethal, and death, which is quite interesting. And I love the fact that they are able to scale like that. You might shoot to try to handicap an enemy, but you're only able to give them a setback wound. But I love that there are degrees of success. I think that's something that's quite important to just running a game in general. So the last two sections here, there's a new condition, which is sickened, which I really like. I think there should be more conditions in 5th edition. That's something that I've wanted to address myself. They also got a couple new monsters. Where like there are fallen angels as well as some other general things. The enemies here are quite cool. I really like that they have the injury threshold just baked into the stat block. That really helps for running these new systems with them. My only thought is their CR seems a tad low, which I could be completely wrong on. I know Wizards has elements to the CR formula that are kind of secretive, and I've never been great at calculating CR myself, but my thought is it should be a little higher than their current CR level. The Angel of Blood is one of them, and I really love the variety in its actions. I think that's really cool, and it's got a lot of cool plates you can spin for keeping actions going in combat. There's also a dragon, Zerafax, Lord of the Fallen, which I love. Any flavored dragon is great to me as well. That's why I love Fizzband so much. The idea to customize your dragon so much is great, and the idea of having one as an NPC here and having so many abilities based on his NPC description is a great idea. And overall, that is the last part. There's also a Crime Lord stat box. It's kind of a person NPC, unlike a dragon NPC. But overall, I really enjoyed these rules. I am 100% going to back this myself. I really look forward to seeing the final versions of this. I really think that it's a great, intricate, layered set of systems that really build on each other well and can create great things that 5e is normally quite lacking in. I think that overall, the game would be better off having these things already baked in. But as it stands, I do really think you should support this. The link is in the description, as I said earlier. Thank you again to Lone Colossus Games for allowing me to have this preview PDF in general, and I really thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do, and I hope that you all have a good day. Bye.